People with half your IQ seem to have double your net worth. And there is a documented, research-backed reason why. It is not luck, it is not unfairness, and it is not that intelligence does not matter. It is that the same cognitive patterns that make high-intelligence people exceptional at complex thinking create specific, measurable traps in financial decision-making. Traps that less analytical people simply do not fall into. This is called the hidden tax on intelligence, and it costs high IQ people enormously in missed investment returns, delayed decisions, and over-engineered financial strategies that collapse under their own complexity. In the next 16 minutes, we are going to walk through exactly what the research shows, covering the optimization paradox, analysis paralysis, the social networking gap, the prestige trap, and the evidence-based fixes that actually work. Let us start with something that surprises most people when they see the data. Intelligence, measured by IQ or equivalent cognitive tests, does predict income, but the correlation is weaker than almost everyone assumes. Across large population studies, the correlation between IQ and income lands between 0.3 and 0.4. That means intelligence accounts for roughly 9 to 16% of the variance in income, leaving 84 to 91% explained by other factors entirely. Intelligence is substantially better at predicting educational attainment and entry into prestigious professions than it is at predicting actual wealth. And those two things are not the same. Understanding that gap is the whole game. The first and most well-documented trap is what behavioral economists call the optimization paradox. High-intelligence individuals are wired to search for the best possible answer to any problem. Not a good enough answer, but the optimal one. Psychologist Barry Schwartz identified this pattern and called the people who exhibit it maximizers. People who keep searching for a better option long after a perfectly good option is already in front of them. His research found that maximizers reported lower satisfaction, higher anxiety, and often worse decision outcomes than people he called satisficers. Those who chose the first option that met their standards and moved on. High-intelligence individuals disproportionately exhibit maximizer tendencies, which in financial decisions produces a specific and costly outcome: the over-engineered financial strategy. Instead of putting money into a simple, diversified index fund and letting compounding do its work, the high IQ investor builds a complex personal financial system: custom asset allocation, sector rotation strategies, active stock selection, multi-platform diversification. That requires constant management and almost always underperforms the simple alternative. The research here is unambiguous. Studies of retail investor behavior consistently show that the most active, most sophisticated self-directed investors, those who conduct the most research, execute the most transactions, and run the most complex strategies, underperform simple passive index strategies by a larger margin than less active investors. Nobel Prize-winning economist Eugene Fama's efficient market hypothesis explains why this is expected. In a highly competitive market where prices already reflect all publicly available information, the effort invested in trying to identify mispriced securities is largely wasted for retail participants competing against institutional teams with faster data, better execution, and structural advantages. The high IQ investor spending 20 hours a week analyzing stocks is not competing against less intelligent people. They are competing against quantitative analysts with institutional-grade tools, and they are typically losing that competition while bearing enormous psychological cost. Now let us look at the second trap, analysis paralysis, because this one has a compounding effect that most people do not account for. Decision fatigue is a documented cognitive phenomenon. The more deliberately and carefully you think through each decision, the more mental resources you deplete, leaving less capacity for the next decision in line. For high-intelligence individuals who apply substantially more cognitive effort to every decision by default, this creates a pattern where extensive analysis of a financial opportunity identifies 20 legitimate risks that a less analytical person would never have thought of, and the result is inaction. The problem is that inaction is itself a financial decision, and it has a cost that never appears as a debit in any account. Empirical research on entrepreneurship consistently shows that successful entrepreneurs are not people with lower risk perception. They perceive the risks just as clearly as anyone else. What distinguishes them is a higher tolerance for acting under uncertainty, which is psychologically distinct from intelligence and sometimes negatively correlated with it. The person who sees 12 ways a business could fail and still starts it is not less smart than the person who sees 12 ways it could fail and never starts. They are operating with a different relationship to uncertainty. The opportunity cost of non-action compounds with exactly the same mathematical force as a missed gain. It just never shows up labeled as a loss, which makes it invisible to a mind focused on avoiding quantifiable risk. The third trap is one that most high IQ people genuinely do not see coming: the social networking gap. Research in economic sociology consistently identifies social networks as among the most powerful predictors of career advancement and wealth accumulation, more powerful than many people expect, and often more powerful than raw ability. Mark Granovetter's foundational 1973 study demonstrated that loose acquaintances in different professional circles, what he called weak ties, are more valuable sources of new opportunity than close personal connections who operate in the same information environment. This matters enormously for high-intelligence individuals because the personality traits that correlate with high IQ, openness to abstract thinking, intellectual complexity, preference for nuance, create a specific friction in networking contexts. Effective networking communication rewards simplicity, enthusiasm, and relatability. The ability to make a compelling 30-second pitch without drowning it in qualifications and caveats is a skill that intelligence does not automatically confer. And introversion, which correlates positively with IQ in some research, actively inhibits it. Research by Cameron Anderson and colleagues on status and intelligence in social groups found that actual measured IQ had only a modest effect on how much respect and status a person received within a group. Social confidence, extroversion, and communication style had much larger effects. In real-world professional settings, the measurably most intelligent person in the room is frequently not perceived as the most impressive or most valuable contact, which means high IQ individuals who rely on their intelligence being recognized, rather than actively and simply communicating it, are systematically disadvantaged in the environments where wealth opportunities actually get created. The fourth trap is perhaps the most insidious, because it is built directly into the incentive structures of the educational systems that rewarded high-intelligence people from the beginning. Research in the sociology of professions documents a consistent pattern. High-ability individuals disproportionately pursue careers that maximize intellectual status and peer recognition within an expert community, rather than careers that maximize financial return. Academic research, elite law, medicine in public health settings, and basic scientific research all attract disproportionate numbers of high IQ individuals, offer intense intellectual stimulation and peer recognition, and offer constrained earning potential compared to entrepreneurship, finance, and corporate management at equivalent commitment levels. The economic literature on superstar compensation shows that the top performer in professional services, a senior partner at a major law firm, a full professor at a research university, earns multiples of the average in their field, but a fraction of the top performers in business and finance. The decision to pursue intellectual prestige over financial optimization is entirely defensible, but research suggests many high-intelligence individuals make it not as a deliberate trade-off, but as a default response to the reward systems of education, which consistently praised deep specialized excellence while never once teaching the practical mechanics of wealth accumulation. Most academically exceptional people graduate having been told they are exceptional and having no idea how money actually compounds, how businesses actually generate returns, or how to sell an idea to someone who does not share their specialized knowledge. Now let us talk about what actually works, and this section is built entirely on research, not motivational abstraction. The first and most robustly supported fix is reducing financial decision complexity through pre-commitment to rule-based systems. Research by Shlomo Ben-Artzi and Richard Thaler on automatic enrollment in retirement savings programs showed that removing the need to make active investment decisions, defaulting people into diversified index fund allocations with automatic contribution escalation, dramatically improved savings outcomes across all ability groups. The effect was particularly strong for high-ability individuals, who, when given active control of their retirement investments, tended to overtrade, over-diversify into complexity, and undersave, while their less analytically active peers, enrolled in the same simple default plans, quietly outperformed them through the mathematics of consistent compounding. The second fix comes from research by psychologist Gerd Giedrenzer, whose work on what he called fast and frugal decision heuristics found something counterintuitive. Strategies using minimal information and simple decision rules frequently matched or outperformed strategies using extensive informational analysis across multiple market conditions. This directly contradicts the intuition that more information and more analysis always produce better decisions. And for high-intelligence investors, it suggests a specific and actionable prescription. Identify the one or two factors with the highest demonstrated predictive power in your investment domain, commit to them as your decision rules, and deliberately resist the intellectual temptation to add more variables. The concept of strategic ignorance, deliberately limiting how much information you consume about a topic to prevent analysis from compressing into paralysis, sounds counterintuitive, but is grounded in decision quality research. The third fix is structural, establishing regular, scheduled review intervals for financial decisions, specifically quarterly rather than daily or weekly. Reducing the frequency of portfolio reviews reduces overtrading driven by short-term noise and lowers the cognitive load of financial anxiety, which frees executive function resources for higher leverage activities than monitoring daily market fluctuations. The broader pattern these fixes share is important to understand. None of them require you to become less intelligent, less analytical, or less thorough. They require you to apply your intelligence to a different level of the problem, designing a system that runs correctly without constant intervention, rather than performing the intervention yourself every time. The irony is that the highest leverage use of a high-intelligence mind in personal finance is usually to spend serious analytical effort once, designing a simple, automated, rule-based system, and then to deliberately, consciously, leave it alone. The person who does that will almost always outperform the person who treats their financial portfolio as an ongoing intellectual project, requiring constant engagement. Intelligence is one of the most valuable assets a person can have, but it is an asset with specific failure modes in financial contexts, and knowing what those failure modes are is the first step to not triggering them. If you want to go deeper on how behavioral psychology intersects with financial decision-making in specific, concrete ways, the next video covers the research that changed how economists think about why people make financial decisions they know are wrong. And the findings are more useful than anything a standard financial advice channel will tell you.